Chapter 14. We don't need no thought control. Pink Floyd, another brick in the wall. Ryker was focused once again on the taste of flesh in his mouth. He had nothing to compare the flavor to, but it was definitely nothing like chicken. If anything, it was closer to pork. He'd had the misfortune in his childhood of consuming part of a raw pork chop, thanks to a foster mother whose cooking skills were less than stellar. He wondered if the flavor profiles would match up, more without the salty metallic flavor of the blood than it was drenched in. Riker focused as hard as he could for a moment, attempting to test the parameters of the quickly growing changes between himself and the creature. When he found he couldn't wrest control of the body to expel the quivering mass roiling down his throat, he sighed inwardly. Sensing this, the creature swallowed and set down the frank chunks he'd been gripping in their hands. In all the time we've spent together, dormant or not, it occurs to me that I've never told you what I did for a living before coming to your world. The voices were matching tones more closely now, but the discordant result was still deeply unsettling. And I didn't think to ask. How rude of me, Riker said sarcastically. He didn't know how to process moments like these, the moments when the creature seemed to regard him as a friend or some strange equivalent. On one hand, he despised it for what it had done to him. On the other hand, Riker was sure his mind would have completely shattered years ago without such banter. On the third hand, or tentacle as the case might be, he had nothing better to do. Was that sarcasm or passive aggression? I'm still adjusting to that, you know. You humans and your strange customs. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Why do you have to make it so difficult? The voices were quickly becoming irritated, and it made Riker flinch. For me, it's a defense mechanism. If I can't process a thought or a situation, I kind of shut down, I guess. After that, I guess I just go into autopilot and, I don't know, sarcasm takes over, Riker attempted to explain. And you find all of this hard to process? It asked, with an unusually high level of curiosity. Well, yeah. Humans aren't meant to play host to dimensionally challenged parasitic psychopaths, Riker explained, doing his best to tamp down the sarcasm, but finding it difficult. That's a fair point. Your continued existence and hosting capabilities have far exceeded my expectations, the creature admitted. Employee of the month, here I come, Riker proclaimed with glee, the sarcasm practically oozing from him now. If you keep it up, you'll be employee of the century in no time. The voices matched Riker's energy and sarcasm perfectly. There was a deeper meaning to that statement. Riker didn't pick it up right away, but the preceding silence afterwards helped it sink in. They'd been together a little more than 30 years now. How much longer would he survive like this, if at all? Rather than writing that train of thought, he resparked the conversation. You were about to tell me what you used to do in your world. You know, before you came here and became a freeloading son of a bitch, Riker reminded him. Ah, yes, so I was. Are you truly interested, or are you merely placating me for your amusement? I can never truly tell with you, he continued. Why can't it be both? Honestly, I never considered that you came from an actually functioning society. I just imagined some dark world with things slithering around aimlessly looking for your next meal, Riker responded. Hardly. Despite our appearances, our society isn't much different from yours. We work jobs that benefit our species. We have our own currencies and luxuries, and we even have our own forms of entertainment, the voices explained. I'll just bet you have some zoo for humans and reality shows where contestants have to survive in other dimensions for a few months to win whatever your equivalent to $1 million is, Riker replied sarcastically. Our equivalent to your $1 million would be one fucktard, the creature exclaimed, struggling to adopt the affectation of a game show host. Riker lost it and nearly died laughing and wouldn't have minded if he did. The random things the creature said had always amused him, but for some reason, that one hit him harder than usual. It took him a moment to catch his breath and respond. I don't think that word means what you think it means, Riker tried to explain. It's the equivalent to your $1 million. What does it mean in your world? The voices sounded curious. Yeah, it's a word someone made up a long time ago to define an extraordinarily stupid fucking person. We also enjoy using the word fuck a lot and have a tendency to add it into things at random to amuse ourselves, Ryker explained, while trying not to break out into laughter all over again, just like I'm doing now, by the way. A temporary silence fell between them as the creature considered this new and interesting information. The blood and viscera that covered them soaked into their skin with a strange sucking sound. Ryker thought he might have shivered at the sound had he been able to. In reality, though, he'd grown so used to the everyday macabre nature of his existence that he likely wouldn't have physically responded to it at all. They print our currency on human flesh. Perhaps there's some kind of connection there. The voices eventually sounded off. Ryker ignored the jab at his species, choosing to focus on the hilarity of the situation. He continued the conversation eagerly. So, let's circle around to the point of this conversation. You were going to tell me what you did for a living, Ryker reminded again. Ah, yes. I worked in our prestigious entertainment industry. I am, a revered celebrity throughout my district, the voices revealed. Well, how about that? I know a celebrity from another dimension. If our situation wasn't so unbelievably appalling, I'd be excited by that. What did you do exactly? Riker was curious now. He just couldn't imagine the creature entertaining anyone. Its jokes were always terrible and poorly timed. He had zero personality and probably ate anyone or anything that didn't applaud. It should excite you to know me, regardless of any situation. I've given your life meaning. In terms of my position, I was a magician of sorts, the voice simply stated. What kind of magician? Riker ignored another jab and focused on the new information. The concept thoroughly baffled him. He swore it had mentioned something about wanting to be a dancer just a year ago. The magician thing threw him off completely. The kind that makes things disappear and such. I believe your people call us illusionists, the voices explained. Were you good at it? Riker asked. He still couldn't wrap his mind around it, but didn't want to insult the creature further. He'd have plenty of time to do that later. At making things disappear, I was a master of my craft. Beings came from far and wide to witness the ingenuity and spectacle of the great. Well, I'd have to cut off your ears and surgically re-engineer the way your brain processes sound in order for you to comprehend our home language. But be rest assured that the name is both clever and worthy of the utmost respect. The voices explained at length. The longer it spoke, the more cohesive they became. Riker nearly facepalmed when something important about all this occurred to him. Further information was required. How are you at making things reappear? It was one of those moments where Riker would have eyed him closely had they been two separate beings. I'm still working on that. The last thing I made disappear was myself, and, well, you've seen how that worked out so far. Perform during the apocalypse, they said. You'll be rewarded beyond measure and travel dimensional space, they said. Never trust an amorphous blob in a trench coat, no matter how fancy his watch and hat are. Lesson learned, I guess. The creature languished. Well, that's an odd sentiment. Aren't you technically also an amorphous blob? Riker questioned, hoping to get more information about the creature. The creature was in a talkative mood this evening, and he needed to take advantage of it. Details like this had never come up before in their many random conversations over the years. It was definitely one of those know thy enemy sort of situations. Technically, I'm an asymmetrical, shape-shifting invertebrate. There's a distinction between the two, the voices explained. You know, for some reason, I can clearly picture a human-sized jellyfish and a fancy top hat and a flowing black crushed velvet cape, Riker mentioned amusedly. More of a tentacle-laden star spawn, but you aren't far off the mark, the creature clarified. So, did you have an assistant? Riker's curiosity was amplified. All self-respecting magicians have assistants. Don't be a, what's the word? Fucktard, the voices said, with no shortage of amusement. It was like listening to a child use a dirty word for the first time. Fair enough. Tell me about her. Riker continued his line of questioning. Why do you automatically assume that my assistant was a female? It appeared annoyed by that. Oh, I'm sorry. I just assumed that, Riker began. That's part of what's wrong with your species, you realize. You all suffer from a gross over-reliance on labels and basic descriptors. Beings are far more than skin colors and pronouns. In fact, outside of concepts like attraction and procreation, those are the least important details. The voices soapboxed. Yeah, I get the feeling that you've put a lot of thought into that speech, Riker reasoned. I've been in your world for a little over a century at this point, with not much to do. I've had a long time to study your species and evaluate its flaws in depth, the voices explained. In all honesty, based on your biological composition, I would have guessed you were gender fluid, Riker said sheepishly. Are are you making a joke? If so, I find it ill-timed and incomprehensible, the creature intoned. Well, we can't all possess your level of comedic genius, Riker grumbled. Are you saying that you find me amusing? The voices questioned. Sometimes, Riker admitted. I'll take that as a compliment, despite your devious nature. In the future, I would advise you to keep your gender fluids to yourself, the creature warned, deadpan. Touche. So, tell me more about your assistant, Riker pressed. Her name was Lola. She was a showgirl, the voices began, being the voices sorry, I screwed up there. The voices began before being unceremoniously laughed at by Riker. The creature considered eating him, but drew the line at auto cannibalism. Let me guess. She had yellow feathers in her hair, and a dress cut down to there, Riker said while absently moving their hand to indicate their upper thighs. How the fuck did you do that? The creature asked in alarm. How did I do what? Riker responded, completely dumbfounded. Riker hadn't noticed the hand moving at all. He had stopped focusing on trying to move any part of their body, which meant it was purely coincidental. You just moved your hand, our hand. How the fuck did you do it? The voices demanded an answer, clearly enunciating each word to display the creature's sudden level of annoyance. I have no idea, but that's an interesting sign, don't you think? Riker answered the question with a question. The kind of thing always infuriated the creature, and it felt like the perfect time to push buttons again. You shouldn't be capable of doing that, the creature said flatly. And yet, I did, Riker added. Their body shifted quickly and propelled itself down a side tunnel. They were moving faster than they'd ever moved before. You've changed somehow in our time apart. Clearly, I've underestimated the situation. Let's see if we can rectify that. The voices all but screamed in Riker's mind. How do you intend to rectify it? Riker asked, not sure he really wanted to know the answer. By any means necessary. I think in this case, shock and awe ought to do nicely, the creature revealed. What does that even mean? Riker was concerned by that. It means you've gotten cocky, and I need to remind you of your place in this relationship, the voices explained, a mix of fear and anger clear within their haunting tones. They're moving so quickly now that Riker couldn't even tell where they were going. It was all just a blur at that point. He was so turned around that he completely missed the painted words on the wall. As they entered a new tunnel that might have prepared him for the events to come, it read, Maintenance Tunnel for Walter E. Stebbins High School.